Okay, we're looking at lesson 3-4, multiplying decimals on page 70. How can you multiply whole numbers and decimals? Barry displayed 4 paintings side by side in one row. Each painting has the same width. What is the total width of the 4 paintings? It says choose an operation. Well, if the paintings are all the same width, which is 36 hundredths of a meter, you could add 36 hundredths together 4 times, or something easier, multiply to find the total. So on page 71 they give you a visual of what it would be like or look like if you added 36 hundredths together 4 times. And so they show you in a hundredths chart 36 hundredths and 36 more hundredths in green, and 36 more hundredths in blue, and 36 more hundredths in orange. And if you did add it together 4 times, or which would be the same as multiplying 36 hundredths by 4, you would have one whole hundredths chart, or your one whole. And then you'd have 44 more hundredths here colored in or shaded in, which would be your 44 hundredths down here. So the total would be, if you added it together or multiplied, 1 and 44 hundredths. Because we don't always have our hundredths chart or have the time to add that up on the hundredths chart, there's a simple way to multiply decimals. So you line up your numbers like you normally would, and you put the 4 down here and 36 hundredths on top, 4 because there's just one, and it would make it a lot easier to multiply that way. And you multiply like you normally would. 4 times 6 is 24, so you'd carry your 2 up there, bring your 4 down. 4 times 3 is 12. Add your 2 to that, which would make the 14. Carry your 1. 4 times 0 is 0, which means you'd have 1 down here. Now, where to put the decimal place is the question. You do not just bring the decimal down like it looks like here in the picture, or in this example. You actually have to count the decimal places. So you're looking from the right side of the problem at each of the factors you're multiplying together. So 36 hundredths has a decimal moved in 2 places. Okay, and you would add it to however many places the other factor it has, which 4 is a whole number, so there is 0 decimal places there. So you know your answer has to have the decimal moved in 2 places from the right. 1, 2, which is where it is, between the 1 and the 4, making it 1 and 44 hundredths. Okay, let's look back on page 70 at another example. How can you multiply a decimal by a decimal? So here it says find 0.5 of 0.3, 0.5 times 0.3. Remember, of means multiply. So really what we're looking for, if you think of it, think of 0.5 as 1/2, right? So we're looking for half of 0.3, or half of 3/10. So do you think the answer is going to be greater than 1, smaller than 1? Think about that. So they give you a visual down here, a hundredths chart again, and they say think of 5/10 as shading the first 5 columns of a decimal model. So columns run up and down. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the 10 across here, and you can see are shaded green. And think of the 3/10 as shading the first 3 rows here of the 10 rows that go all the way down of the decimal model, and they're shaded red. And if you look to see which squares are shaded both green and red, you can see that it's actually 15 squares, or 15 of the whole hundredths chart, which is why our answer is going to be 15 hundredths. So again, if you're going to multiply decimals, you just just set it up like a normal multiplication problem. Here we have 3/10 times 5/10. Multiply the numbers. We have 3 times 5, which gives you 15. You carry your 1, put your 5 down here. 3 times 0 is 0. We have that 1. It's placed down here also. Then we look and count our decimals from the right of each of the factors. We have 1 place here. 1 decimal place moved in here. So how many decimals do we have to, how many places do we have to move it in? In our answer, a total of 2 places, which is why we have the decimal moved in before the 1, making the answer 15/100. All right, let's look at other examples on page 71. They have find 48.2 times 3.9. And they go ahead and say, let's estimate and make 4850 times instead of 3.94. And we know 5 times 4 is 20, add your 0. So we know our total is going to be about 200. And then they line up their numbers and multiply like you normally would, with 3.9 at the bottom, the smaller number with less digits on the bottom. And they multiply. 9 times 2, they get 18. Carry their 1 up here. 9 times 8 gives them 72, which makes it 73 with a 1. So they carry their 7, which you don't see. And 9 times 4 is 36. Add the 7, they get 43. Then they come down because they're going to multiply by the 3 in the tens place. You have to put that 0 in there as your placeholder. And they multiply again. Here it's 3 times 2, which they get 6. 3 times 8, they get 24. That should be a 2 up there. 3 times 4 is 12, plus the 2 is 14. And they bring it all up, add it down, add these together, and they have 18798. Let's just pretend there's no decimal there. They've just added this. And they're trying to decide where to put their decimal. Well, we know this product has a decimal moved in 1 place. This product has a decimal moved in 1 place. So my total is going to be 2 places that it's going to be moved in to the product or the answer. So they move it in and it becomes 187.98, pretty close to 200. And notice the decimal's not moved down. Nope, we've added them together. Let's look at the other example. It says annex zeros to the left of a product. Sometimes you need to add zeros to the left of a product in order to place a decimal point correctly. So they want us to find 0.43 times 0.2, or 43 hundredths of 2/10. It's going to be a smaller answer than either of the factors because we're multiplying by a decimal and we're multiplying a decimal by a decimal. So they do the normal, line it up, 2/10 is on the bottom, and they multiply 2 times 3 to get 6, 2 times 4 to get 8, and 2 times 0, well, it's going to be 0, but we really don't have to bring it down. We know it's going to be 0. So they look here to the right, or from the right side of each of the products, and we see that 43 hundredths, well, the decimal's moved in 2 places, and 2/10 it's moved in 1 place. So we need to add this together and move the decimal in from the right 3 places in our product or our answer of this multiplication problem. So from the right, you move it in, and if you didn't have this 0 here in red, which you may not have, unless you add it, you wouldn't have it, we can't move our decimal place in 3 places. So you have to annex a 0 or add a 0 there so that you can move that decimal, that 3rd place. And when you do, you can see that the answer is 86 thousandths. So it's very important to understand that you must add the number of decimal places of each factor together to figure out where you place the decimal in your product. Okay, let's look at guided practice 1, 2, and 3. And I want you to look at these problems and write them down. Copy them take them in to copy them and figure out where do you place the decimal point in the products of each of these answers. So on number 1, if I have 2 times 0.302, and this, they already gave you your answer here. Where does the decimal go? And do the same for 2 and 3. Pause me, and then go ahead and come back and check your work. All right, so I see I'm multiplying a whole number times a decimal. And if I look from the right here, how many places is it moved in? 1, 2, 3 places here. No decimal on my 2, so my answer then would have the decimal moved in 3 places from the right. So I know 1, 2, I was going to move it in here. My decimal would be right here, and I'd probably go ahead and add a 0 to the left of that, and my answer would be 0.604. If you look at number 2, I have another whole number, 3 times 0.92. So 0 decimals here, 0 places anyway to the right. And if I look from the right here, I have it 1, 2 places. So I know on my answer, my product, I'm going to move the decimal in 2 places from the right. And my answer would be 2.76. On number 3, we have 4.2 times 5.4, 1 place here, 1 place moved in from the right here. So I know, since I add that together, I'm going to move my decimal place in 2 places from the right, and my answer would be 22.68. All right, finish your homework by answering number 4, 5, and 6 in your guided practice. On number 4, you're just deciding where do I put my decimal. If these are my factors, I'm multiplying together, my product, where does the decimal go? On 5 and 6, you're actually going to have to do the work, do the math, multiply, find the answer, and decide where the decimal goes. So come to school tomorrow with these answers and a question. See you tomorrow.